Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Avengers issue 41. And this was a pretty good issue, and continuing the tournament of the Phoenix Force, and the Phoenix Force trying to find its next host, and everybody pretty much trying to figure out what its kind of whole deal is. This issue mainly focuses on T'Challa as he's trying to figure out what he needs to do against the Phoenix Force. As we start off, he is put pretty much close to like Wakanda's central kind of city, and he's ruminating on what everybody else kind of does to get themselves into the moment, and he tries to empty himself of everything except the essentials, to fight with great emotion, but not to fight emotionally. And I'm like, that's pretty good and really does fit with T'Challa's kind of style of fighting. And trying to connect himself to that spiritual place where his ancestors of the Panther Kings and Queens that had walked previously. And it's kind of cool to get into his headspace and figure out his kind of style of what he's trying to do to fight the Phoenix Force. And of course, his opponent is Man-Thing infused with the Phoenix Force. Of course, he gives the background of like, it pretty much burns anybody that can feel fear, and it, of course, T'Challa doesn't. And he's trying to like reason with it kind of, but it's kind of going not completely all out, but going in as a Phoenix Force kind of thing. And then T'Challa goes and Phoenix Forces up, and I really like his kind of shift. It was kind of cool to see, okay, what would Man-Thing look like with the Phoenix Force? That was kind of interesting. But T'Challa's, I really like kind of how his design kind of goes through. So he pretty much takes down Man-Thing and gets back into the White Hot Room, as we learned it's called, where hosts of the Phoenix Force kind of usually reside, as we get that information from Logan, because everybody's like, okay, so what happened to the other guys? Like, he'll regrow. So T'Challa kind of like took Man-Thing down a peg, and they're like, well, we tried to go through everything, we tried to like escape this place, and it doesn't work. And they're trying to get an idea of why they were picked for everything. Valkyrie, of course, talks about how she was Thor and all that, and like, oh, and Jen kind of like picks up on that. Most everybody's like, we don't really want to be here, except for Namor, and he's pretty much trying to force something. He's like, I want the Phoenix Force, let me fight. Jen, of course, is like, I ain't having this. She hulks out and is getting ready to fight him, but the Phoenix Force stops them from fighting. It's like, okay, evidently the Phoenix Force wants them to fight in certain kind of instances with each other. So we then shift and see that it's Luke Cage versus American Eagle. And of course, Luke Cage is looking like his old kind of 70s kind of self, mixed with the Phoenix Force, which was kind of an interesting thing. And Luke Cage is like, Phoenix Man and Iron Fist, heroes for hire. That would be kind of interesting. And then we see that someone's ruminating on what the Phoenix Force is trying to ascertain. Not just the ability to fight, but like that passion, because American Eagle wants power for his people, and punches Luke Cage and breaks his hand, and then keeps punching Luke Cage with that. It's like, holy shit. We then shift over and we see like Shanna She-Devil versus Moon Girl. That was kind of awesome to see their kind of take with the Phoenix Force. We see Valkyrie versus Orb, who is still the retainee of like a Watcher. He's like, I can see everybody dying across the universe. And Valkyrie's like, I ain't having any of that shit. And pretty much like pounds his ass with like kind of baseball kind of thing. We then shift over and see Hyperion versus Shang-Chi. This one was a really interesting one because we see Hyperion as his Phoenix form. He's like, I can see all these kind of things. And he's like, wait a minute, that'll make my mind too open. And he's like, I yield. And Shang-Chi is Phoenix forced up. I mean, not like on fire or anything. But he is just sitting there, and he has mastered the way of fighting without fighting. And it's like, And it answers the question of what kind of Phoenix Force host Shang-Chi would be. And it's like, that'd be an interesting one because he won a fight without fighting. Let's see. The last kind of lineup we get is Red Widow versus Howard the Duck. And of course, Howard the Duck is pretty much like, I ain't taking this shit no more. And Red Widow just beats the fucking shit out of him. And then comes back, and we're in the White Hot Room again. But instead of being in and looking in with most of the other people, we see that the Million BC host of the Phoenix Force is sent to give an offer to Black Panther, pretty much like the Phoenix Force wants you to be the host and doesn't want to deal with like all the other kind of stuff, and that you shouldn't be arrogant to refuse this. And of course, T'Challa's like, there's a difference between arrogance and fortitude. T'Challa wants to beat the Phoenix Force because he doesn't want Earth to be destroyed or anything. Namor is arrogant enough to think he can control the Phoenix Force. Now, granted, he was a host at one point, but wants to do all kinds of shit. He's been teaming up with some really weird people for his Defenders of the Deep. So it's like, okay, it is a really nice contrast to see like Namor's arrogance versus T'Challa's fortitude, because it's one thing to say that T'Challa is doing this out of fortitude. It's another to kind of show it, what this issue does. Because he's like, listen, then that's not really much of an offer. Here's my offer. Leave us alone. Don't show your intent to not kill anything, pretty much. And I won't have to destroy you. Because that's kind of the thing that everybody liked about Black Panther in the Million BC in his group. It's like, it's just this dude with these glowing rocks. But they knew that he felt that if he needed to kill these gods, he would. And that's kind of T'Challa's kind of mindset as well. He's like, I gotta make sure. Because when he came back the first time, after fighting Man-Thing, he was like, it was exhilarating to fight like that. Frighteningly so, because this is a power that, if you don't watch out, will control you instead of you controlling it. And that gets brought up because he refuses her offer, and she's like, alright then. You might make the case that I'm a buzzard, but what happens to the panther when the buzzard's already feeding on him? He then gets sent into fighting Nighthawk, and of course he's one of the Squadron Supreme of America. And they pretty much like have, I would say, something similar to a Batman off if you got like two Batman to fight. He's of like, yeah, we're gonna pretty much, my life model decoy is gonna be pretty much screwing you over with tariffs for Wakanda. And he's like, yeah, I kind of already knew that, and was kind of like messing around with this program anyway, so screw you, buddy. And they're pretty much doing these war of words as they then are like, oh, it looks like we just gotta beat the hell out of each other, huh? And of course, they commence to do that while we get to see, of course, the ruminations of the fighting. And of course, it comes to this point of like the biggest kind of thing that the Phoenix Force is trying to push for is for them to get to a point of letting go and having like Rage or whatnot take over, where that's the only kind of thing. So it then shifts, and we see a Wakandan helicarrier named Bozeman, which is really nice. I like that they had that kind of thing that was named after Chadwick Boseman. It was over like Atlantis and all that. And they're like, yeah, there's some really weird shit going on down there. And of course, that whole Rage bit comes into play because it's Echo versus Namor, and she is not doing very well. She has gotten to the point where she has let go, but she has never fought like Namor before. He's fought underwater, and he's like murdered people. He ain't giving a shit. He is going all out, and seeing her Phoenix up and juxtaposed with, in the next page, Namor Phoenix up, you're like, yeah, she's gonna see shit underneath there. It's like, oh shit. So I guess Phoenix was pretty much being like, that's a really big disadvantage for Echo to be fighting underwater like that, whereas that's Namor's home territory. But we see that that's kind of what the Phoenix Force is doing, kind of putting them into situations where one could potentially have a lot clearer of an advantage if they know the home terrain. So we'll have to see how this kind of works out, because it's like, alright, we'll have to see who's able to handle Namor and how this is going to like shake out, and who's going to be the Phoenix Force host. And even though this is pretty much similar to like an episode of Dragon Ball Z, Tournament of Power kind of thing, I kind of like that they did this. They don't really do this much in comics. It's mainly done in like shonen anime or manga, and I kind of like this kind of style, and this really does fit with the Phoenix Force in having to try and find a host like this. So I'm excited to kind of see who's going to get whittled down and who will eventually get into that part as the Phoenix Force's host, and what the ramifications of that will be. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.